Okay. All right, Jonathan.
So when you say, so if you go to the very last sentence, well, the sentence before the very last where you say, have the line go through the joint sample mean of y1 and y2, do you mean so y2 conditioned on y1? So the expectation of y2 given y1? Is that what you mean? So it's the same as the intercept of the baseline as covariate model?
So you can actually just calculate out the sample mean for the pre values and the sample mean for the post values, and use that point because just to give a little more information, PC1 is really an axis, is what it is. There's not one specific line. I showed you on the lecture notes there was one line that I made, but anything going in that same direction is on that axis. So the way to anchor that was to have it go through the mean of those points. So it's not really conditioning on like it's just the unconditional mean for the pre-values, unconditional mean for the post values. That's a way to figure out y-intercept value for the points.
Wait, I guess
Does
I'm a
that make
little,
sense?
no.
No?
So
Okay.
So you have two different means. You're saying there's a mean for y1 and a mean for y2. And then you
Yeah.
want me to have that slope go through that mean, those 2 points. Is
Mm-hmm.
that what you're saying? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But sorry, I'm eating here and talking at the same time. It's kind of rude, but I'm hungry. So regression line, by definition, is one specific line that goes on the graph, right? Um,
Well, it's 2 points. It's the intercept and your slope. So as long as it goes through
that's yep, and that defines the line.
Mhm.
That's one way, common way to define that line. But PC1 is an axis.
Right.
Y1 is an axis. Y2 is an axis. So the Y, when we make a plot of post versus pre, the Y2 is the vertical axis, right?
Right.
So it doesn't really have an intercept. It's just anything that's going up, that's a change in Y2. And anything that's going left or right is a change in Y1. So PC1 is also an axis, and it goes in a little bit more along the post values because because we're taking 0.5 times y1 plus almost 0.9 times y2, right? So it's going to align itself more along the y2 axis, but it's definitely has both involved, both y1 and y2. So that tells you what the slope is going to be.
Right.
But it doesn't tell you what the y-intercept is going to be. So that's why I had to give you a little bit more information and say, well, make it go through the sample means.
Okay.
And that makes sense because that's really the middle of the data.
Right.
And I believe that the regression line will go through that same point.
Right. Okay.
So this is really a review question that's more basic. That it's more about regression lines, but I felt like it was a good, just kind of a something that helps us understand regression lines and how they compare to other lines that may tell us, about variability of one variable relative to another.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Can I ask it's related, like what classes at the school actually teach you how to do principal components and not just how, like a lot of classes touching on how to interpret them, but like actually executing them?
That's a really good question. I don't know the answer to that. I actually, when I was in college, I took a multivariate analysis class, and in this is at CSU, and so we would go through the multivariate normal and test for that, but then you get into cluster analysis, principal components analysis, factor analysis, canonical correlation analysis, the things that are true multivariate methods. And I'm not sure that our program has a similar class or not, or if there's one on campus. I don't know if anyone else is familiar with that, but Carrie, if I find out, I'll let you know. That's a good question, though. I don't know if we really have a class where that's a core method that you learn.
Yeah, there was one class called like latent variable or something, which I assumed would cover principal components, but I don't think it's being offered anymore. I think that professor left.
Okay.
I was just curious if there's any left.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. And I also know that the courses that are taught on, on topics like that, or things that are kind of more advanced or maybe not as mainstream, sort of depends on what professors specialize in. Like you said, like somebody happened to come in that knew about latent variable modeling and they wanted to teach a course on it. So it kind of depends on who's in our department at the time. But yeah, this is a good question. I'll make a note of it and I'll talk to Gary. Gary would probably know. But it's really a useful method, like principal components analysis and factor analysis. I mean, they're used a lot now, especially since big data is more common. Genetic data, big data involving marketing and advertising, and just there's so much information now, and we have big data out there. So methods like PCA are becoming very useful, and it's definitely used a lot in genetic analyses. So honestly, I think it makes sense that it would be a very foundational method that should be taught in our courses. And if it isn't, that we probably need to figure out a place to put it. I mean, I just scratched the surface of it just to show how it can be used for graphs, but it's definitely something that should be foundational. What else?
I was here just wondering about a really either basic matrix algebra review or a source maybe to point me to. I'm pretty rusty on it.
Yeah, so that's a good question. I imagine that there's others in the class that feel the same way. So what I can do is I'll get some resources together for that. A lot of times you can find pretty good online resources, and there's a couple textbooks that may be helpful as well. But actually, and that's the other thing. I'll probably email you guys. Like at the beginning of the slides today, there was like a checklist thing, and I talk about what are the matrix algebra things that you need to know, and I'll actually post a document so that you know what's expected of you and what's going to be useful. So I will post that as well as see if there's a few resources I can point you towards.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, and it's honestly like, if you know the basics, if you know how to add matrices and multiply, and then, take a transpose of the quantity, things like that. It's not that long of a list. I mean, so like knowing the basics is important. Kronecker product, we'll talk more about that one. But yeah, I'll do that. Anything else? Yeah, so we talked about, I mean, I gave you really as much as I would want to give you on number 4. And so I think the only question is, do you know some of the fundamental properties of matrices and how to manipulate them in order to answer that question? 2 and 3 are pretty straightforward, and 1 I think is also straightforward. So I'm actually going to post homework 3 probably tomorrow, you know, in anticipation that you guys will want to get going on that one. And would you guys be okay, do you think, turning in, like this will be due Monday, if I can get the homework 3 like by Friday, the end of Friday, then I can post solutions. You're probably wondering how long it is, right? So you want to see how before you answer that. I mean, I could give you a little bit more time, like into the weekend, but I, you know, I want to be able, first, I want students to be able to review the solutions and have enough time to really do that thoroughly before Monday, you know, that Monday, the 28th, when we have that short quiz.
For quizzes, will there be things, I mean, I know you can't answer specifics, but like the deriving or taking expectations and kind of like the more theory stuff, is that something that would be expected on a quiz, or is it going to be more of the applied work, like writing models, doing contrast?
Yeah, it's going to be more of the latter. I'm not saying that there's not going to be any theory, but if there was, it would be pretty close to what I asked on the homework. I'm not going to. I've learned a lot, you know, over the last 30 years, or yeah, I guess 30 years. That if you ask questions like that, then that's the hour. You know, you wasted that whole hour just, you know, on people trying to figure out one thing, and so it's going to be more of applied questions. You know, definitely come in knowing how to write custom tests and writing statistical models, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it will definitely be less on, you know, theory.
Okay.
Yeah. Anything else? Okay, well that's a short and sweet session. I imagine next week there'll be more questions probably next Wednesday. Yanran is on. She'll be available on Friday at 9 o'clock. So there'll be a couple sessions, and then we'll confirm the actual turn-in date for homework 3. You know, but I'll post that tomorrow. All the resources, are you guys able to get into the YouTube when you want to and review the lectures on YouTube, or get all the information you need through Canvas? Okay.
Do you think that Yanran could also record her office hours?
Maybe. Yanran's on. Like I told her that she didn't need to because I felt like we'd have enough from mine, but we'll look into that.
Okay.
Into that possibility. I know that she has her own link that she's using, so I'll talk to her more about that.
Thanks.
Yeah. All right, guys. If there's no other questions, have a great rest of your week, and we'll talk to you on Monday.
Thank you. You too.
Okay. Take care.